Hi, this presentation will cover the administrative scientific perspective of curriculum. So the administrative scientific method of curriculum had some major contributors, which you can see on this slide. I'm going to briefly talk about the historical timeline. So Frederick Taylor was from the field of scientific management in the late 1800s, early 1900s, working after the Industrial Revolution and the Progressive Era, which then Frederick Babbitt was kind of during the time of World War One, and where there was a focus on a need for trade-based training. Ralph Tyler's work came after the Great Depression in World War II, when soldiers were coming back to work and they were trying to define societal roles. W. James Popham was writing in the late 1960s and 70s on to today, and during that time, it was a focus on training that was developed, and the Elementary and Secondary Act was also passed. So across each of these ideas that created this scientific method or administrative era were some key themes. And I'm just going to mention them here and then talk about them further. Efficiency, changing behavioral patterns, a focus on improving the learner, trying to identify what should be taught, quantifying those into objectives, and then figuring out how to meet them. So we begin with Frederick Taylor, who set the foundation from the scientific management field. He looked at how to make things the most efficient in the workforce, really going into organizations and identifying through time and motion studies, how do you complete tasks? During this process, a hierarchy was created between the workers and supervisors. In this process, each task was broken down so their individuality and creativity was diminished. Everybody had a specific job that they needed to complete. That made employees dispendable. Each of the tasks were little parts, and each person spent their time working on that. There was a particular way to do that, and the division of labor was across each individual, creating kind of this factory line model, which we can see in the work of Ford when he did the creation of cars. Hopefully, the idea is there's a balance between workers and the company so that there is some sort of a value added to both people. But this set the precedent for the field and was brought into curricular studies. So we have Franklin Bobbitt, who wrote a text called The Curriculum. And in his work, the key idea was that education be focused on the future. So as you're thinking about curriculums, you need to look at the present day conditions and what need to happen, but thinking forward. So to do this, we study individuals in their natural context and try to ascribe meaning to what it is that we're noticing. The focus was on the social deficiencies or the shortcomings. In other words, what were those things that they were learning in their natural environment, and then what was perceived to be the things that they should know, and then trying to things that they should know, and then trying to identify what tasks should be happen. So he called that undirected and directed. So undirected was what they learned in everyday life, and then you would create particular tasks to fill in the gap or those proficiencies, and then suggested that there should be some sort of progression on how you directly teach those shortcomings. So we move on to Ralph Tyler, who still is influential in the field today, wrote an initial book, The Basic Principles of Curriculum and Instruction, and I'll show you that the multiple renditions, how it is still in use today. So he had some key questions that he thought were effective for curriculum developers and designers to consider. One was, and you can see those here, really thinking about the educational purpose. What's the task? What are the learning progressions? And what is the assessment? So based on that, he thought that objectives came from divergent sources. There was not one belief system. So from the field of progressive, where it's about experiential, or essentialist, where it was more related to standard ways of being, to those who were curriculum experts, combining those ideas together and what it is